Epstein Island 2.0, or perhaps maybe the very first Epstein Island. In case you had not heard about this, I wouldn't be surprised. We are talking, of course, of North Fox Island out there in Michigan. In case you had not heard about the case going on there, or at least that had happened and was kind of a cold case until recently, we'll have a discussion about it. You see, everyone is talking about Epstein, about his island and the amount of things that happened there with children and the celebrities and the adults and all that stuff. And it's been blasted all over. We want the names, we want the flight logs, we want everything. However, Epstein Island may not have been the very first of its kind. In fact, it might have been learned from another island excursion that was precursoring it in the 60s and 70s. Most people will not know about it. Most people had not heard about it because the case went cold after 4 murders took place there. It was known as a pedophile ring, yes, but it was also known as an unsolved mystery of these 4 boys' death.
It all began on February 2nd, 1976. Everyone thought it was an isolated case, but the murder of Mark Stebbins of Ferndale remains unsolved. His body turned up 2 weeks after he disappeared in a parking lot in Southfield. The 12-year-old had left his mother and brother at a social function, never to be seen alive again.
Not a day goes by, where you don't wonder and, worry about it,
It happened again. The victim this time, Timothy King, age 11 of Birmingham. Last seen at a party store 3 blocks from home. Found a few weeks later on a dark roadside in Livonia.
Do you have any reason to believe that the suspect might still be in the area?
Nothing specific, no. But this type of crime, very often the responsible will return just to see what's going on.
All they can tell is that the death of the boys happened after they were dealt with in a physically sexual way. Never could figure out who it was, and the case went cold, and all of a sudden now it came back into spotlight. 2022, 23 was the last time when they finally figured out a person of interest in the case. The person they're talking about is a man named Francis D. Shelton. Now, he had bought an island, Fox Island, for about $20,000 back in the day from a widow. And what he began to do seemed awful lot like Epstein Island. He started clearing places, built a house, put in a basement, decorated that basement in various and sundry looking things, and built himself a airplane strip on this island to accommodate the people that he was supposedly going to start marketing children to. His fetish, however, was not just in the sexual, but also in the depraved of violence, which is why it led to what it led to with murders. 4, to be exact. He had an affinity for boys, not just any young person, but young boys. And he would occasionally send pictures of these boys, to clientele. Now, the way he did it was not through regular means of pictures, because, of course, back then you have a little different of carriage. There was no internet back then, but he used to mail his clientele pictures of these young boys. How he would do it would be in film format. He wouldn't send a developed one, he'd send a roll. Because in his mind, he knew, hey, I can send that. They're not going to check it because they'd be highly unlikely to open a film roll and never find what I'm sending. This is how it started. So long before Epstein showed up on the scene, at least in the capacity that he had, there was someone for him to learn from. This island idea became all but a surety to Mr. Epstein that he could get away with stuff because these people did. Now, I don't know whether or not Mr. Epstein went to the point of unaliving children, but this particular individual in Fox Island did. Did Epstein learn all that he could learn from this particular excursion? Did he know because of the type of stuff he dabbled in? Maybe he was even one of the clientele that could have gotten pictures from this individual. Because what would happen is as he would send pictures, they would send back requests for even more depraved acts. And what he would do is use that island to bring children under the pretense of having them get away on a retreat. And he would talk to the parents. This is familiar stuff. Talk to the parents. Come on, it's all good. You can come too, and blah, 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 blah. However, he would take them on occasion away to certain locations, take pictures of them and send those pictures to his clientele. He'd get them to trust him and do more and more things with them. Eventually, he had quite an array of these things happening on Fox Island. Of course, it's late now in the game after we found out latently that this was going on, but I'm sure there were many people in high places that knew already. And I am almost 100% sure that one of those people that knew exactly what was going on could very well have been Epstein himself. Now, one does not just mimic without having some sort of an inclination of what takes place. You can't just guess. There are way too many similarities. A small island bought for a small price from somebody who didn't want it. You start to build on it. You invite children there. You create a space for these children, and then you invite clientele to come and hang out with these children. Epstein could not have come up with that blueprint by himself. Again, speculation about the link between the two, but everything seems to point that Epstein was not the original idea man behind the type of island he had. Fox Island was indeed the original, the OG Epstein Island. It was so original that even the most depraved of acts in unaliving happened. We still don't know much about Epstein's work. We still don't know much about his clientele. We don't know much about the man. The same way we don't know much about Fox Island except the latent stuff that has come out and the reintroduction of this investigation today. We may never get to the full disclosure of what took place on Fox Island, the same way we may never get to the bottom of Epstein Island. For years, Fox Island went on untouched, unseen, unchecked. For years, Epstein went in unwarranted, unchecked, not seen, out of the spotlight. It may have come up in conversation, but you never really heard anyone say anything. They all knew, and it continued. Same thing with Fox Island. It would be something of an anomaly had this not been brought to light now to think that maybe Epstein was the only one. But it couldn't possibly be. And I'm pretty sure that there are more places that are doing this as well. You see, the survivors that came out of that place all told their stories to no avail. To no avail. They did not get the belief in their stories. There are people being killed and no one cares. There are people being hurt that no one cares. Almost identical to when people start talking about Epstein Island, no one cares. How can you say that there's this national ring? There's no global ring of child abuse going on. Stop your line. That's ridiculous. It's impossible. This is what they said, the exact same thing about Epstein that they said about this island too. 4 children turned up dead. 4 of them. And that is the craziest part, that nobody came to justice for it. I understand maybe the 70s and the 60s may not have had the most brilliant investigatory processes that are out there. But you caught people like Bundy, you caught people like Mace, you caught a whole bunch of them. Why was it different with this one? You want to know the other similarity that may have been possessed by this particular island as it was with Epstein? Notable clientele. You see, Epstein avoided a lot of crap because of the people he knew. They were rich, they were powerful, they were in government. They could keep him out of jail just like they did when he got arrested the first time. What happened to Epstein? Go to your house, it's okay. And you can go to work too, have fun. In fact, we're not even going to shut your island down. The island will be there when you get back. Don't stress about it. We're not touching that. Could it be that the people that were involved in Fox Island had the exact same kind of power play at work? That the clientele that he was entertaining with these young people were the kinds of clientele that could keep him free to do exactly what he was doing. And why it went cold was because there were too many people that were involved in it that were behind investigations of things like this to begin with. One will never know until all the details are explored. That's the sad part about it, that there will be time still that people are going to just watch and I can't do a single thing about what's happening. As much information as we have, we still don't have the actual details of any of the cases, whether it be Epstein or Fox Island. But what we do know is that many more like this is probably in existence today. And they're all protected by the exact same power structure. They're all protected by the powers that be that are dabbling in that activity, while on the other side touting, we must stop the trafficking of children, while they're indulging in it right then and there by making sure that all their clients and all their people get away with it. We are glad that this particular thing popped back up because it's proving one very important thing. Epstein is not an anomaly. Epstein wasn't a one-off. Epstein learned. And the people on Fox Island learned from somebody before them, and the person before them, and the person before them. And they seem to have almost perfected it in Epstein Island, where it went completely silent with nobody watching for decades. Hundreds of people went there to have their way with children, and not a word was said. The good thing about Fox Island, if there is a good thing, is that it did not continue for overly long. The bad thing about it is that the end result was a loss of life. The only benefit we have today is to probably look back and see what we can avoid in the future. See what kind of tactics they used to cover up. Look and see what kind of things Epstein might have copied from this particular island onto his. And look for the same patterns in other locations as well. But in order to do that, we have to actually have people who care enough to do it. We brought this to your attention for two reasons. No one talked about it, and no one seems to care. We're asking you to change that. We're asking you to stand up, put your actions where your thought process is and where you type out and say, we should talk about, we should do exactly that. Get this word out. Have more people's eyes on the situation and have people aware of what might be going on around them. This might be happening in a small town and no one knows what the telltale signs are. Maybe it's time we start exposing the signs. Start listening to the people that say they're victims and investigate it. And if it leads nowhere, it leads nowhere. But to say it can't lead anywhere is by textbook definition of enabling an action. Our request is that you take this video, share it far and wide, because more people need to understand that Epstein Island was not a one-off. It was rehearsed.